I'm from the Thunderchild First Nation, Abdiguna. Kinaskum tana bendotoye, Pikiskwehkwin, Kawotinikew, Pikiskwehkwin. I think I would actually say that Kawotinikew with Pikiskwehkwin. Reclaiming our language. So I'm from the University of Calgary, and I'll tell you a little bit more about myself in a minute. First of all, I want to start with the land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge we're here on the territory of Treaty 6, home of the Cree, Saulteaux, Assiniboine, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota nations of Saskatchewan, and the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan as well. As I mentioned, I'm from the Thunderchild First Nation. Chief Thunderchild was a big supporter of education that was promised under Treaty 6, and he built his own school on the reserve that was located west here of Delmas before we moved to the north of North Battleford. Saskatchewan has a rich history of Indigenous culture interwoven into the fabric of its society. From the name of the province, Saskatchewan, to its national parks. So I always joke that when people are saying Saskatchewan, they're actually speaking Cree. Fast flowing river. And I always figure Swift Current's a bit of an oxymoron. You're saying Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Swift Current, or Saskatchewan. So I'd like to acknowledge my ancestors from the Thunderchild First Nation, home of Chief B.S.O. Oasis, Chief Thunderchild, who signed Treaty 6 in 1879, and my grandfather, Chief James Okanee, who was the last hereditary chief on Thunderchild. So I'm going to play a little video here for you on why land acknowledgements are important.
Geographic locations are what we call natural laws. Our laws come from the land, and our practices of granting rights and privileges is a process we were born with that ties us to this land. The mother's body was the first environment that we experienced. And when it's time for you to leave, you go to the mother environment, which is the mother's body, and you ask the environment if you can leave. And a process happens where the mother grants you the privilege to leave. So you go into another environment. That's why we talk about Mother Earth. When we accept other people coming into our territory, there's a process that happens. A smudge, a practice of gathering of our people, and that practice is where we bring in permission to come into your territory. Those are systems that actually came from the mother's body to the environment that we live in, and we use those systems to greet other people as they come into our territory.
So you can see that was Elder Reg Croshu, Pikani. He's a member of the Senate of the University of Calgary. And I'll be sharing more information about Reg as well. So in today's presentation, I'd like to cover the following topics. I'm going to walk around a little bit because that way I'm not standing, feel like I'm delivering a sermon or something behind that podium. And as well, if you have questions, please feel free to ask, put up your hand, or just get my attention. And it's here to be a dialogue. I'm not meant to talk to you. I'd like to have a conversation with you. So in today's presentation, I'd like to cover the following learning objectives. Throughout the workshop, participants will be able to learn how the University of Calgary Writing Symbols Lodge is offering conversational Indigenous language teachings to Indigenous students. U.S. participants will learn about the demand for our programming and the format participants will gain an in-depth knowledge of how to incorporate a number of languages into programming to meet the demands of students that come from many cultural backgrounds. So at the University of Calgary, we've got students right from BC all the way to the Maritimes. So we have many Indigenous languages that are attending the University of Calgary. Any videos that have been prepared here prior to this conference will also be shared as a part of this presentation. So a little bit about me. As I mentioned, my name is Karen Okeny MacDonald. So anybody you know last name Okeny, I'll be related to. My parents were the late Nancy Okeny, who was a Frank from Pongmaker, and William Okeny, who was the youngest son of Chief James Okeny. I have 8 siblings. I have 3 brothers who passed away. And as you can see, my family has a lot of degrees, which is I attribute to my parents supporting education and teaching us language. My spouse, my husband is Gary MacDonald. He's out of Calgary. He is a former instructor at SAIT, which is the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. I have 2 children, William, who's named after my father, and Galen. My son William's a second-year student at the School of Business at the University of Calgary. I guess following my footsteps. I didn't expect him to choose commerce, but he did. And my daughter Galen, who finished grade 12 this spring, and she's taking a gap year, and she'll be applying to university next fall. She just has to decide what course she's going to take. It's a little bit about where I worked. So after I graduated in 1987 with a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Calgary, or University of Saskatchewan, I worked at SIIT for 1 year. And then I moved west to Calgary, and I spent 30 years with Shell Canada in oil and gas. I retired last year, and I wasn't quite ready to stay home, so I joined the University of Calgary, working at the Writing Symbols Lodge. Some of my pastimes, reading, I play pool, and I volunteer with my daughter's marching band, and I especially enjoy volunteering at the University of Calgary with our various Indigenous events. I want to start off with the Indigenous strategy at the University of Calgary. I'm going to start talking about the framework that the University of Calgary has developed over the last 30 years. And this Atapato Indigenous strategy is 2 years old. They're just celebrating their 2-year anniversary this week. So Itapadope is led by the Indigenous Strategy Group at the University of Calgary. It's led by Dr. Michael Hart, who is Cree from the Fisher Creek First Nation in northern Manitoba. And they also have a cultural protocol officer at the University of Calgary. Her name is Pamela Beebe from the Kainai First Nation in southern Alberta. A little bit about
When I realized they were doing an Indigenous strategy, I felt that they needed to do it the right way. We need to develop some sort of safe space to be able to understand each other.
The university developed this strategy as a result of a whole range of things happening in our community. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, of course, and the calls to action, and the sense that we needed to rebuild or reset relationships with our Indigenous communities.
This strategy isn't about integration, it's not about assimilation, it's recognizing that we have 2 very different cultures that are following a parallel path that want to walk together in a good way.
In a good way, it's a guiding philosophy. It's a reminder of the responsibility we have to not only creating a strong document that validates Indigenous perspectives, but also that we have a responsibility to carry it out with integrity.
The major accomplishment in this process has been the way in which we developed the strategy itself.
The new way we looked at was developing a playing field so the oral system and the written system can understand each other. So the stories in the written consultation needed to be considered as a discussion from both sides to see what the next step is going to be.
What we did is we took the role of listener and really get a sense of what the Indigenous and non-Indigenous community think about the University of Calgary. We had roughly 2,200 points of contact.
The Indigenous people that participated in the consultation process brought their stories and their frustrations, their desires and their dreams.
Those consultations were embedded in every word, every symbol, every piece of the strategy.
I think it's really important for us as an institution to understand the perspective of history, culture, and in particular the land and relationships to the land from the perspective of traditional knowledge keepers, and to bring that knowledge to campus.
The concept of journey was important. And when we're looking at journey, we're looking at the concept of how can we collect the stories, but then how do we bring home the stories?
When our future generations of young people see that the efforts made by an institution that has not traditionally been very open to Indigenous ways, I think that's going to go a long way.
I think it's really important for the students to feel like there's a home here, to see your Indigenous history and culture and ways of knowing in courses around the campus and whatnot, to have that really a community feel.
I see indigenization as a healing force, drawing from Indigenous knowledges and wisdom that could strengthen the fabric of the university and spill out into the community.
My hope would be, well after I'm long gone, this relationship and the relationship between our Indigenous communities will continue, and that those communities will be an integral part of who we are as an institution.
And the thing is, when there's smudging involved in different things, you have to get what is called a hot works permit. And Elder Reg Crowshoe joked, he says, but I go to these luncheons and they have those little burners in there. I'm only smudging for a couple minutes. So we have some work to do as well. So, as you might have guessed, Abomasnow is a Blackfoot name. It's the name of the strategy, and it was bestowed and transferred in a ceremony by Kainai Elder, the late Andy Blackwater, in 2017. So the name signifies a place to rejuvenate and re-energize while on this long journey. So as university students are coming in, it is a long journey for them to reach their educational goals.
The University of Calgary needed a Blackfoot term to express the strategy in the name, Idobato. And the university itself, that's your destiny, but it's not your final destiny. Perhaps to some, but mostly you go there to rejuvenate yourself, to replenish yourself, to educate yourself. Our young people will go there with the idea and the notion that I'm going to be going there to do something for myself that is going to impact on my life and whoever is involved with me in their life too. That is taking you to your final journey in life, is to establish yourself.
So this is the cultural model that the strategy is built around. there's significance to these symbols that were gifted to the university by Dr. Reg Croshu as well. I won't read all of those, but each symbol has meaning, starting with the way of connecting, ways of being, shared space, ways of doing, ways of knowing, renewal, and transformation. You'll see the strategy and these symbols throughout the university. So they're walking the talk when it comes to the university, respecting Indigenous culture, especially with the strategy that they put forward. So that's kind of the framework at the University of Calgary, is this Itapato strategy that we have that encompasses the university. And the Writing Symbols Lodge is the student center. So we support Indigenous students. It used to be called the Native Center, and as part of decolonization, we went through a renaming ceremony earlier this spring. So we provide a safe space for Indigenous students and a safe place for cultural capacity building. So the former Native Center has been around the university since 1988, so it's been around for 31 years. The Writing Symbols Lodge focuses on Indigenous students, whereas, as I mentioned, Itapato encompasses the university strategy overall when they're dealing with faculty, the public, both internal and external. So oftentimes, as Indigenous people, we get phone calls from non-Indigenous people saying, so we get all sorts of phone calls saying, can you tell me about a pipe ceremony? Can you tell me about smudging? Can you find me an elder? So we get all sorts of phone calls. So you have to be patient, because the people who are making those calls, they want to learn, they want to know. So we don't turn anybody away, and we help them as much as we can. And we do work with the Indigenous Strategy team, specifically the Cultural Protocol Officer. Because our focus at Writing Symbols Lodge is supporting students, they are the ones who support the university overall with some of those questions. And Dr. Reg Croshu, that you've seen there a couple times, he's a member of the University Senate and has an honorary doctorate of laws as well. So we support Indigenous students, as I mentioned, from across Canada, from BC to the Maritimes. And fun fact is that there's more Cree speakers in Calgary than any other major city in Canada. So at the Writing Symbols Lodge, we offer Indigenous students a sense of community. So we're located centrally on campus, right above the food court. The University of Calgary campus is very much like the University of Saskatchewan campus, although the U of S campus is much older. University of Calgary has been around since the early 1960s. So we have these various programs. We offer academic advising, so if students need to come in and talk to us about their course load, the classes they're taking, we offer support. We have a program for Indigenous youth at the high school level called Otapimiskan, another Blackfoot word. We also host the ISAP, Indigenous Access Program. That's the program that I'm coordinating. So that's for Indigenous students who might not quite make the entrance requirements for the individual faculties. They can do a year of open studies with us and then transition into their faculty of choice. We have a Diagumista. If there's any Dene speakers, I apologize for butchering that language. And that is the student success program that we have in terms of offering supports for students, and I'll go into that here in a little bit. We also have the Indigenous Relations Training Program, or IRTP, which I just came from coordinating, and the audience is primarily non-Indigenous people. So if either they're university staff, university students, the public, we have people from non-registered charities who want to come in and take a 4-day crash course on Indigenous relations. And a lot of the feedback that we get are, geez, I wasn't taught that in school. You should have told me these topics are really heavy. because the first day is a cultural day with Elder Reg Croshu typically, or another elder from Morley First Nation. And so we cover a lot of heavy topics in there, like from residential school, the north, the forced relocation of the Inuit. Those topics are really heavy. And some of the feedback that we do get is, you should have told me. So we have been telling students, when you come into this course, you're going to learn a lot that you didn't learn either in high school or your university days or just in public. A lot of it's common knowledge to us as Indigenous people, but when you're teaching non-Indigenous people, it's new to them. So it's a really helpful course for them to educate them. And we run it 4 times a year. We also have special events at the Writing Symbols Lodge. We've got potlucks, cultural lectures and ceremonies. We have a big annual graduation banquet and powwow, which is quite big. It's been running for as long as the Writing Symbols Lodge has been open. So for 31 years, this powwow and graduation has been happening. We gift the students with Pendleton blankets and eagle feathers, although that's becoming much harder now, and as well Métis sashes for our Métis students. Within our facility, we've got a computer lab where students can come in. They've got private study space, and we have a student lounge called the Red Lodge. We host the Indigenous Student Council. We give them office space. We have lockers for students, and we have a cultural resource room. So the cultural resource room is where students can come in and smudge. We offer privacy. They can pray. They can meditate. You often smell sweetgrass or sage burning in the morning when you're coming in. As students actually have after-hours access as well to our student center. So example of some of the programs and services that we offer. We have the cultural resource room I just mentioned. We also offer a traditional sage picking on Nose Hill Park. We have a Cree grandmother's tea ceremony led by our elder Carrie Moore. We also have men's ceremonies. We have traditional knowledge keeper connections. There's always elders coming through our offices. And we're hosting these Indigenous Language Cafés, conversation cafés, and I just held the first one on Cree last week, so I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few slides. We also have Indigenous crafts. We've had so far caribou hair tufting, fish scale art, and we also have drop-in beading every Tuesday. So it's really nice to see all these students learning how to bead. And one of the young men who was dropping in last week, I asked him, "What are you beading?" And he said, "I'm beading a cover for his skateboard." So he had it all planned out. And actually, he was a really good beader. I was really surprised. So I'm very proud of him. And also, of course, we have Orange Shirt Day activities, which is a big event as well at the university overall. A little bit about our powwow. So we also have a number of awards that we give out that people have nominated. And the university president, I had to coach him. He's new this year. So when we had the Circle of Honor, where they're wrapping the students in Pendleton blankets and handing out eagle feathers, and the Métis sashes for the Métis graduates, I had to coach them behind the scenes. Okay, this is what's going to happen in terms of protocol, and it just all went smoothly, like they knew what they were doing. So let me tell you about the Writing Symbols Lodge and how we got that name. So we had a big ceremony in April this past spring. We had 11 traditional elders, not 16. They started that morning. They had Dr. Reg Croshu led with a pipe ceremony, said prayers. They did a lot of consultation, and we had 11 elders. So Reg and Rose Croshu Pikani for Blackfoot. We had Kelly and Daphne Good Eagle from the Siksika First Nation. Florence Kelly, who's from Northern Ontario but resides in Calgary now. She's Anishinaabe and Cree speaker. We had Wallace and Teresa Berchi from Siksika, Blackfoot First Nation. Loretta Peranto English, who's Blackfoot from Kainai. Diane McGuinness from the Tsuut'ina First Nation. Carrie Moore, who's Métis and has relations at Muscadet. We had also Rod Hunter from the Bears Paw Stoney Nakota First Nation. So as you can see, they consulted, they came up with a few different names, and then one of the elders, I believe it was Wallace, Bear Chief, said, you know, students come here to learn. So they gave it a Blackfoot name, but we also was translated to Writing Symbols Lodge, but it was also translated into other languages as well. So this was a big news story in the University of Calgary newsletters. This is manager, Amanda Enns, my manager. She unveiled the new name. So the renaming ceremony was in April. Then we had the graduation powwow on June 1st, and we had a big unveiling that day. So we transitioned from the Native Center, which everybody knows where it is, to Writing Symbols Lodge, and now people are saying, well, what is Writing Symbols Lodge? So, you know, the way you learn languages, we just force people to learn that Writing Symbols Lodge is now the new name. And as you can see on the bottom of the Writing Symbols Lodge are some of the translations. So in Cree, I helped Dr. Michael Hart and I translated Writing Symbols Lodge into Masnaiheogamek, so Writing Lodge. And you can see the Blackfoot translations, the Stoney, the Dene. We're also getting it translated into Michif and Anishinaabe. So this is the program that works with the high school youth. It used to be called NAPI, the Native Ambassador Program, which is, NAPI though is the trickster in the Blackfoot language, similar to Wisakijak in the Cree language. So they've had that name for quite some time, but they just went through a renaming ceremony itself as well. So as you can see, we're using all these Indigenous languages for our programs as a part of decolonizing the names of the programs at the University of Calgary. So Otabemiskan is a Blackfoot word meaning bring rations home for sustenance. And we had Elder Dwayne Mistaken Chief from the Kainai First Nation in southern Alberta. He was given tobacco in the spring of 2019, and then just recently this past fall, they actually had the ceremony itself. So with the Abomasnow Program is designated for youth, so high school youth, aged 13 to 24. It combines two streams, so educational outreach and youth leadership training. So the ambassadors to this youth leadership program are typically university students. So they go out to the high school. They go out every week from September right till April, and as well into June and July. They're out speaking to high school students about leadership, what it means to have self-confidence, and to reach for their goals in post-secondary education. And of course, a stay in school message. So Indigenous students have told us that they want to have culture treated as a priority rather than an accommodation. So that comes from Truth and Reconciliation post-secondary settings report. So we're trying to do our part at the Writing Symbols Lodge in terms of hearing those students and hearing what the demands of the programming that they wish to have. So as part of the Student Success and Engagement Program, we use the medicine wheel in delivering our programs. We have a cultural room, as I mentioned, where students can smudge and pray or meditate. We offer them privacy to do that. And of course, at the beginning of all our staff meetings, we do the same thing. We have a smudge, say a prayer, begin our meetings, have a good meeting of minds. And every week, I'm sure it's the same here at the universities here in Saskatchewan. I see students every week going through stress. They come into my office with exam anxiety. They're thinking of dropping out. I miss my home. They're lonely. They could be from Nunavut. They're from the Yukon. They're from the Maritimes. So we work with all these Indigenous students in terms of bringing them cultural support, both with our elder, so they can have monthly appointments with an elder if they so choose. And we also work with the Indigenous mental health advisor, who focuses on supporting the Indigenous youth when they bring these concerns to us. And they also proactively can identify students who faculty members have seen at risk, and they can forward those names to us in confidence, and we can try to get ahead of some of the stress that they're experiencing.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
With your programs you have, are they all throughout the program at the university, or do you have them in the first and second year together as a group and then have third and fourth year out? Or how does it work?
Yeah, that's a good question. The question is, do we have all the Indigenous students together, a cohort group, or all their own faculties? The answer is all. So the University of Calgary has approximately 750 Indigenous students out of a population of about 39,000 on campus. So it's a big university. And so there'll be Indigenous students that apply right into those faculties. And so if they self-identified, we can get reports of all the Indigenous students that have self-identified. But we also have Indigenous students who go through the ISAP program, the Access program. So if they didn't quite make it to faculty, they can take this course. And I coordinate that course with the professors. So there are 3 courses that we ask them to take under the ISAP program as a cohort group. A cohort group is they take these 3 classes together. So for example, this first semester, they're taking Indigenous Studies 201 together as a group, and they can take up to 3 other classes as well. So allow them to take up to 4. And then next semester, we have Indigenous 397, as well as English 251. So any ordinary university student can get into those classes. You have to be part of the ISAP program. And I personally work with the professor to make sure the students are successful, and we can highlight that we feel are at risk and give them additional supports. So we have hope. Yeah, go ahead. No, I don't think we have that program there. We do have, the University of Calgary has a Student Success Center, it's called, so it's open to all university students. They can get academic support, they can get counseling, they can get writing support, research support. But I work with the Student Success Center, and we have them come into our office every week, so that on a drop-in basis, so our Indigenous students don't have to go to the Success Center. They can just come to our office and get support there one-on-one. So yeah, it's drop-in as well. So here are just some of the programs that we've had on campus. We've got some students, they're beading, hair tufting. I think they had fish scale art. I haven't seen that one myself, but apparently it was there last year. We have the sage gathering in September. So yeah, we make all these Indigenous cultural activities available to them for them to feel included, to celebrate their culture. So we're building support on a day-to-day basis with our students. So the program, this program here that brings all these programs together for Indigenous students used to be called Isert. So it's Aboriginal Students Success Energy Program, I believe. And then it was changed to Isert, but now it was given a new name.
Kumasaste, that means all of you try hard.
So that was a voice recording, because we had to learn how to pronounce the new program name. It was granted, or gifted by Lieutenant Elder Diane McGuinness. That name was raised during the Writing Symbols Lodge renaming ceremony in April that I was describing. They didn't choose that name, but they saved this name for this program, for Indigenous Student Success Program. So in I gotta try to say it again. Akuma System. We have success and engagement workshops. We teach. We offer ceremony. We offer the Indigenous leadership training. We have academic advising and assessments. We have trauma-informed counseling by appointment. We've got various student success seminars that I mentioned. And we've got intercultural capacity building field trips. We also had a sweat lodge for students back in mid-September with traditional knowledge keepers and language speakers. Oh, and that little dog there, actually today in our offices, they're hosting Pal's Pet Therapy. So we work with an organization that brings dogs in to the into our offices, and the students can come in to part of the stress relief. They can pet these dogs and spend an hour with them. So that's what their little dog is doing there. Okay. So when students have been surveyed, they've told us it's important to know their culture and speak their language and have access to cultural practices and knowledge specific to their people. So as I mentioned at the University of Calgary, we've got many, many Indigenous groups and speakers. So we have access to elders, whether they're Blackfoot, Stoney, and the Blackfoot language is slightly different. They tell me between the three big reserves there, Siksika, Dene, and Kainai. They said they can tell each other from when they speak which reserve they're from. So it's pretty interesting. So, I'm just going to do a time check. Does anybody have time? 1:41. Okay, good. I'm on target here. Thank you. So as part of reclaiming our tongues, the Writing Symbols Lodge was awarded funding from the University of Calgary Students Union to host these Indigenous Language Cafés, reclaiming our tongues. And the cafés will be held in Blackfoot, Stoney, Dene, and Cree. And as I mentioned, I led the first one last week in Cree as part of the 2019 International Year of Indigenous Languages. This is just our poster that we advertise on campus for our language cafés and also online, so students can sign up. It was interesting for the first session, the Cree one. Actually, I expected mostly Indigenous students, but actually we had quite a variety of students coming. We had Asian students, Indian students, Muslim students, so they were all learning, wanting to learn. So I said, come on in. So what I told him though is the first cafe was 90 minutes long. I said, I can't teach you Cree in 90 minutes. So I gave them a whole bunch of tools. I gave them, I made a presentation for them. We went through some of the simpler words like count to 10, which I thought, okay, no, that was good advice. I heard that. And really, when I look at back how I learned Cree, to speak Cree, my mom said I didn't speak Cree until, or pardon me, I didn't speak English until I was 4 years old, which means I spoke only Cree until I went to kindergarten. And my sister was here yesterday, Linda Opening. She's Director of Operations at Thunderchild First Nation. She told me, she reminded me, she said, remember when we used to get home from school, our parents would tell us, stop speaking English. So we had Cree immersion, we had to speak Cree as soon as we got home from school. And of course, I've been away from Saskatchewan for a long time, so my Cree is rather rusty. And my late mom, Nancy Opening, I used to phone her every Sunday to have a conversation with her in Cree. And then she'd laugh at me saying, oh, you're pronouncing those words wrong. She said, one time, I can't even remember what word it is, but you said frog. It's like, you better start practicing your Cree. So I promise, I have a promise to myself that I'm going to improve my Cree. So, with the language cafes, they're being held, as I mentioned, we're piloting these language cafes with students at the University of Calgary. So the first Cree one I had, it was 90 minutes, but the students are now craving more conversational Cree. So I picked up some, the language toolkit out there. So I'm hoping to have more language cafes for students so that we can have that conversation and not just come to 10 or say hi, how are you? But you need to have a conversation in Cree to be able to pick up the language. So our students, with these language cafes, we hope to give them a sense of community support on campus. There is a need for immersive programs, as I mentioned, and not just teach language credits. Okay, so in addition to the language cafes, we have oral stories and wisdom of traditional keepers that we're going to keep the elders coming in to be recorded to help share the language, of course with their permission. And we have a number of elders that have agreed to work with us to indicate so that they can leave their legacy of their language with our students. Okay. So with these language cafes, some of the outcomes that we wish to have, our students, we want them to have a feeling of a sense of belonging, that they're welcome inside the Writing Symbols Lodge. I always say we have the 750 students on campus. Not all of them come through our doors. So it's like there's the front reception area. It's like they stop and there's a little invisible line there that they're afraid to cross. Once you kind of make them feel welcome, you help them cross that little invisible gate. They say, oh my goodness, I feel so welcome. And that's what we want. So even though we have 750 students on campus, not all of them come through our gates, but we're trying more and more to make them feel welcome and give them that sense of belonging. And some of the students have told us that they increased their confidence by learning to speak their Indigenous languages. So we had about 25 who attended the first language cafe. I showed them a few videos from YouTube. I played the Gokum rap. I don't know if you guys have seen that one. That was pretty cute. Seeing all the Gokums rap. I also showed them some Facebook groups that are out there. You always have to be careful with Facebook, of course. But the Ermineskin Cree First Nation Facebook page has a lot of posters and pictures of Cree and their interpretations. So I showed them that one. And the one that I probably liked the most and that I shared with them during the Cree Language Cafe was the podcast from Gene Okamesis from the University of Regina and the accompanying textbooks. There's 20 podcasts that are free, and you can download the free textbook as well. So as part of my own commitment to better enhance my Cree language, I got those podcasts downloaded to my phone, and when I'm in my vehicle, I play them.
What's the name of those podcasts?
It's through Gene Okamesis, University of Regina. It's called Cree. If you come see me after, I can show you on my phone what they look like.
Okay.
Yeah, and the podcasts are free, so you can download them and listen to them. And she makes you repeat the words. And I understand all the words. I know what they mean, but my pronunciation is off. So it's like getting back into it. I'm sure if my mother was alive, she'd probably laugh at me as well.
Okay, let's click here. Languages around the world are disappearing at an alarming rate. This is in British Columbia, so we'll hear a greeting now. But with the click of the mouse and with the help of Google Earth, more than 50 Indigenous languages around the world are coming to life. With recorded audio clips of greetings, chants, and even a few traditional songs.
The basic greetings that we use here in Hokamitian He is asking, how are you? E-H-U-I-O. E-H-U-I-O.
Mandy Jones is among one of the 7 Indigenous persons from Canada featured in the Google Earth project.
My hope is that people see it and want to learn more about the language in our territory. They'll hear the word Hokamitnam and they'll say, that must be from Nanaimo. I gotta find out more about this.
Google Earth has the same objective, to raise awareness of languages and help preserve them too. Through the years, Jones worked hard to preserve her traditional language and today teaches the language to both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people on Vancouver Island.
If we lose our language, we lose our culture. If we lose our culture, we lose our language.
If you think of the residential school situation, people were punished for speaking their languages. They went back home. They were afraid to speak the languages.
She says the fact that the Google Earth project coincides with the UN International Year of Indigenous Languages is a cause for celebration.
What it does is value the language, and it shows that it's something that's important to people. It shows the relationship of language with land, because they're talking about where they come from.
Talking and celebrating a language that for many was taken from them so long ago. Cass Rusey, CBC News, Toronto.
So, we must transform how Indigenous students are supported. I don't know if you guys heard the youth that were speaking just before lunch. There's that thirst, they've got that knowledge, they've got that drive to learn their language. And it was so heartfelt, and it really touched me when they were speaking about their desire to learn. So when we're supporting students, we need, it means we need to address their financial, emotional, and cultural needs so that they can succeed in post-secondary education. So part of the Indigenous Language Cafés that I mentioned, we had the first one there that was scheduled Cree. The next one we're going to host is the end of November is Michif. And January we've got Blackfoot. February we've got Stoney and Nakota. And March we'll have Dene. Satina. Last video.
وننسقلقل تشم حقا هاتي سيكون كوي أتلاش قوية
ها هو أي صنع
Thank you for listening. questions?